Hi, Stitchers. Welcome to Tatreez Talk, where we share conversations about Palestinian embroidery. I'm Amani here with my co-host Lena, chatting with talented embroiderers and artists, sharing their stories, inspirations, and the cultural significance behind their work.
On today's episode, we are chatting with Watfa, a Tatreez artist, educator, high school principal, fiber arts teacher, and photographer. Welcome to Tatreez Talk, Watfa. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast.
Whoop whoop. Hello, everyone.
I love all the and you are very, very
Yes.
busy. And I'm excited to talk to you about all of your projects. But before we do that, Wazfa, can you start off by introducing yourselves to our audience by sharing you and your family's connection to Palestine?
Sure. So I'm Palestinian Brazilian. I'm born in New York. My dad is from Palestine. He's from a village that has become well known, Debde. It's outside of Ramallah. He went over in his teens to Brazil, found my mom, stayed in Brazil, and then came over to the United States. But yeah, my dad's from Deadwood. My whole family lived in our neighborhood in the Bronx, so it was like the little Palestine street in the Bronx.
Love.
Um, and he met my mom, and they came to the U.S. He left um, Palestine right around 48. His
Mm,
oldest brother had died in the 48
mm.
war.
Allah
And
yarhamah.
his dad, my granddad, uh uh, had him leave
Hmm.
to Brazil, and that's where a lot of Arabs were going and Palestinians were going during
Yeah.
that time to Brazil because they were allowing them to enter.
Yeah, my maternal family also wound up in Brazil. Where did your father wind up going in Brazil?
He went to a place called Teresópolis
Okay.
in the state of Rio de Janeiro. So
Okay.
it's a mountain. It's a mountain suburb in Rio.
Okay.
So he
Nice.
was there, and that's where he met my mom.
Yeah. And did he, because so my mom grew up in, my grandparents wound up in the South, in southern Brazil, in a very, very small random town in the middle of nowhere. But there was also a ton of Palestinians in this small random town in the middle of nowhere. So I'm curious if, do you know, like, did your dad have a Palestinian community while he was in Brazil?
He did. He had a very strong one, and they all came over together. So there was my cousin, my dad got there, and I think there was a couple of other people.
Hmm.
But my cousin came over, um, and a couple of other cousins came over to my dad to Brazil with my dad. They opened up a fabric store, kind of
Love.
general store. And they all were in the same community on the kind of same street. And then they all came over to New York together to the South Bronx. They lived in the South Bronx at the time. And they, as any immigrant family does, right? They all go into one apartment. Everybody has their own room until
Yeah.
their families start to expand. So my mom, when she came to this country, and my dad, they lived in a three-bedroom, I think, in the South Bronx.
Hmm.
And the other two couples were also Palestinian Brazilian um, families.
Hmm.
And my mom's still friends with them today. Um, well, not friends, but and they talk all the time for a long
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
My mom's going to be 90, so it's kind of hard to say still friends still today, but you
Yeah.
know, they remained in contact, and it was a beautiful community. It allowed us to see that we weren't very different than
Hmm.
uh, you know, Palestinians. Like we were Palestinian Brazilians, and there were other Palestinian Brazilians.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's
So
awesome. But I always am interested to learn more about the Palestinian diaspora communities outside of North America, honestly. So it's always interesting to hear.
yeah, it's funny because when I took a class in college, we talked about the Catholic Church
Hmm.
bringing over lots of Lebanese, Syrians, and Palestinians
Hmm.
into Brazil, Venezuela, and Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, and trying to whiten their society, right? So they
Hmm.
found Arabs that were very light skinned, right? Which
Hmm.
I was like, my dad didn't fall into that category, but okay, he got through. So, but and I tell people that they're like, well, how did and I'm like, well, there was this large community of Arabs that went into South America because these countries were trying to whiten, right, their societies, right? And this is as awful, it's awful, but it also helped my dad um, find another community, right? It
Yeah.
was they were welcomed in those countries. Um, and they created these beautiful communities throughout Brazil, Venezuela, Chile. I meet people and I'm like, oh my God, you're a half and half, right? You like, people are like, oh, you like Shakira. I'm like, yeah, sort of, kind of like Shakira. I wish I was Shakira, but I'm not. But that kind of people then let it click, like, oh yeah, it's not just people like Shakira. It's like lots of different South American countries and Arabs.
That's so funny. Actually, I've gotten that as well. Oh, you're like Shakira.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so that resonates. I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
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 sure.
yeah.
Whatever you'd like to think,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, so how was it like growing up in the Bronx as a Palestinian Brazilian? Like, what, I mean, I don't know if there's like vivid memories that you have, but I'm curious about that experience. Because I'm newer to New York. I came to New York much older, right? Like I came around in my late 20s, early 30s. So, yeah, I'm curious about that experience. Also a different time. So, yeah.
So, proud Bronx girl. We grew up, and I would say, if you think about Palestine, like in a village, right? All your families are around, like the house next door, down the block, right down the road in the village. Um, our street in the Bronx was the same thing, right? A block away, we had my aunt and her sons and their children. And then on the other block, we had my aunt Nasima, who was with her five children. And then down the block from her, we had my aunt Shama and my aunt Fahima. And we have Sakina, and then we had Uthman. Right, we were literally enclosed with my father's family and cousins. So we grew up in that. Um, I think and this is something I think people need to hear. People weren't always kind to half-breeds, right? Right. You're not really Palestinian, and sort of like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I am. My dad is
Hmm.
Palestinian. Um, so there was a little bit of that growing up, of like being able to say, no, your mother's Brazilian, though you're half Brazilian. It's sort of like, and I celebrate, at that time, right, you didn't know how to say it, but as
Yeah.
you grew older, you're like, I celebrate both my cultures and it makes me who I am. And but we grew up in this like capsule of Palestine, of our family, of Deb de Bwan, a little Deb de Bwan
I know how you did
neighborhood.
Juanita roll.
Yeah, right. We were like, it was all of us squished in, and we all to the same, right? The weddings on Sundays, and everybody saw each other. So it was, we grew up knowing who we were, right?
Mhm.
There was no second guessing that we were are a Palestinian. I will
Mhm.
say that sometimes we were taught to not say we were Palestinian, but to say we were Jordanian, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
there was
Yeah.
such this negative connotation with Palestinians. And people would say, "Where are you from?" And people would be like, "Oh, you're Jordanian," and we're like, "No, we're Palestinian." They're like, "No, no, no, there's no such thing." And you're like, Dad, Baba, what are they
Mm.
talking about?"
Mhm.
So there was a lot of that, people not understanding, and still till today, right? When it's better now in the past 4 years with Instagram and all of the media attention. But at that time, people were like, "Oh, Palestinian, Pakistani? No, not
Yeah.
Pakistani,
Yeah.
my friend, Palestinian. Oh, Jordanian, there's no such thing as Palestine." So at a young age, you're not giving a history lesson. You're just trying to figure out, okay, how do I tell these people, like, I know what I am? And
Mm-hmm.
it helped having my cousins around us, right? It helped
Mhm.
having this community of people, even though it was like, your brothers and sisters, everybody's fighting on the corner and, kind of thing. It was nice to have that. And then as we grew older, and the weddings, going to the weddings, and building those stronger relationships with our cousins, really helped to find my identity.
Mm,
And it wasn't until I didn't go to Palestine until I was 16.
mm,
Um, and that's when I really understood, for me, what being Palestinian was, right? What it meant to me, what my identity was. Um, and how to explain to people, and going back to my aunt and going back to my community and be like, hey, you guys left out all of this information.
Mm,
What's
yeah.
up with that? And it was little stuff. It was stuff like, the thobes, right? I didn't
mhm,
Mm.
understand, right? When I got there, I was like, oh, it's not just my aunts that wear them. Everybody wears them, right? It wasn't just for a
mhm,
wedding, it's everyday wear. Um, and not beginning to understand the differences in the dressing of the everyday, of my aunts in the United States, right? Because they wore thobes right in the South Bronx. They walked around in their thobes, they hiked them up, they were walking in the streets, and you're like, oh my God, these people are wearing this in the street in New York.
I love
And then
it.
you understood, like, okay, this is how they live over here. They're just bringing
mhm,
it. It didn't change, and I think that was, for me then, it was beautiful to understand that they brought
mhm.
that culture with them. They didn't just leave it, right? They didn't leave it at the door and say goodbye to it. I'm going to assimilate to being American. I'm going to continue to carry my heritage with me.
Yeah,
So,
I know Dibwaniya, you guys do not play about Tatreez, and I love
yeah.
that. So you said kind of the first time you went to Palestine, it really changed a lot of things, including obviously how you view thobes and stuff. So is that when you started doing Tatreez on your own, or how did your relationship and your Tatreez journey begin?
Introducing the drop that nobody asked for, Resolute RGL, the sneaker that takes centuries of Palestinian resistance and sells it back to you in leather. Co-founder Yossi Levin calls it empowerment. We call it exploitation. Same guy who once erased Palestinians from his projects in Haifa, now stitching Tatreez into a shoe to build his quote-unquote multi-million-dollar brand. They say it's bridging local and global. Translation: Palestinian women stitch, Europe profits, Israel wins. Limited edition, unlimited hypocrisy. Don't buy the hype, boycott Resolute RGL. This anti-ad was produced by Tatreez Talk. We stitch, we talk, we boycott.
So it started when I was 4 or 5. One of my neighbors was doing, at that time, cross stitch, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was doing cross stitch. She was a Brazilian woman,
Mm-hmm.
who was my across the street, and I had always seen it on my aunt's dress. And I was just like, oh, that's what my aunt's wearing. She's like, yes, it's. So I was like, I want to learn. And so she taught me. So at 5, I started, right? But I didn't understand like the motifs. I didn't
Yeah.
understand, right, the background. I just knew it made pretty flowers. It made pretty bookmarks, right? So I continued to do it. And then you start on the 10 count. Then I went to 12, like 12, blah, blah, blah. And I would do little things. I would do flowers. And then sometimes I would see their thobes and I would see like the grapevine, and I try to copy it. And do it in here and there. And at that time, by the time I started to really get into it, I was 14, and I started to do photography in high school. I picked up a camera, and I was not the best student. I will say that anyone who knows me, I was a horrible high school student. I was horrible to my parents. I was horrible high school student. I am an amazing principal now because of my experiences. But um right, I was picked up photography, and I started to photograph things. I started to photograph pieces of thobes whenever we went to a wedding,
Mm-hmm.
um and started to look at them and not understanding completely how they were different, just knew that they were beautiful, right? That these pieces that I wanted to make. um and so I started photographing different things, at weddings, at different events, mostly weddings, right? Weddings, hennas,
Yeah.
engagement parties, um faces, stories. And then when I was 16, I had raised enough money. Like I said, I was not a good student. And so my parents kind of refused to, like, they were like, we're not doing giving you any money. God knows where it's going to go. So no money for you. So I started working and selling things. Like I would sell my embroidery. I was selling scarves. I was doing everything. I was hustling as a 16-year-old.
Yes.
And there was a group called the Palestinian American Youth Organization in Washington, D.C. And at that time, my older sister worked for ADC
Mhm.
in Washington. Um, and she's like, let her go. So I went with 16 other, seven, maybe even more than that. I can't even remember. There was a bunch of us
Mhm.
um, who went to Palestine, all teenagers, ranging from the age of 14 to about 18, um, from all over the country, from Kansas, Texas. Um, I can't even remember. There were so many of us from so many different places. I think I was the only New Yorker
Mm.
that went. And we went and it was 20 days and from top to bottom in
Wow.
Palestine. I went to, I think places I never thought I would go to
Mhm.
at people. And then when we got there, of course, it's the first introduction is the airport. Um, we were held for 22 hours, and that was my
Oof.
beginning of wait, there's something wrong here. I'm not
Mhm.
treated like everybody else. This is not right. And so when we left the airport, and then, we and started off in Jerusalem, and I started seeing the Tobs, I started seeing Tatreez in the stores and in the souk. And I'm like, do that. People are like, you don't do that. I'm like, no, look, I have my own Tatreez, look. And they're like, well, you do. I'm like, yes, I do. And people, then it became my mission of like finding places that had it and buying a
Mm.
pillow. And then I discovered, at that time I had discovered the DMC cotton
Mhm.
size 8 the balls.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
pearl
was
pearl
using the
cotton.
cotton.
skeins, yeah. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. I have money for this, and I have money for this material, and the difference between the Ada cloth and seeing the thobes. And then I started to really start taking pictures of different motifs. And I
Mm.
met a woman who then began to explain to me, like, oh, that motif is from this city. I'm like, what do you mean from this city? They have different thobes from different cities. And she's like, yes. She's like, everybody's different. Um, and I was like, huh. So then I began to become more aware of it. And I think the biggest shocker for me was the thobe in Bethlehem at the time. We went to Bethlehem, and
Mhm.
I'm seeing these very shiny, very like that wasn't the tris, it was, and I didn't know the name of it then, but it was the couching stitch. And I was like,
Mhm.
wow, those are different. Those aren't though. Those are, and my family would wear those on like those high holy those high class weddings we would go to, the big fancy
Mhm.
ones that you couldn't wear your normal thobes to.
Mhm.
So I was like, oh, this is interesting. And during my time there though, I did experience things like with the Israeli soldiers and with other in that environment, um and I'll talk a little bit about that, but it also began to awaken that where is my right, where's my justice, where's my
Mhm.
equality, where's my right to exist in this country, what
Mhm.
can I be here, why am I treated this way, um and then learning about the different villages and how they differed, right? At that time, at 16, I didn't know that there were Palestinian Christians. I had no idea that there were, I thought everybody was Muslim. I thought I was an
Mhm.
oddity, that my parents were, my mom was Catholic, my father was Muslim.
Mhm.
I was like, whoa, what are you talking about? There's Palestinian Christians. And learning that. So there was a lot of that learning, as well as learning about myself.
Mhm.
Um, and then I just photographed everything. And when the different dobes, so I have like this, I'll have to find it. And now in these conversations, I've been like, I got to pull out my negatives
Mhm.
from that trip because I still have the pictures.
I was gonna
Um,
ask about that.
yeah, yeah. So, I hate to break it, like 40 years later, I thank God for negatives, but going through and seeing these, not knowing that you can do Tatreez on, right, the tobes. It
Mhm.
became Tatreez on pillows, Tatreez on wall hangings, right? And handkerchiefs. I saw handkerchiefs. Like my one of my aunts that lived in the brand had a Tatreez handkerchief, and I'm like, why is she like using that to blow her nose? Like, what's wrong with her?
Mm,
And then learning about the pocket inside the chest panel, and I'm like, well, what is this? You can have a pocket there. Um, so then, right, these motifs are happening and I'm falling in love with them and photographing them and then going to Gaza at that time, right? I still think about
mm,
that and seeing the Tatreez there and how different and vibrant it was, right? And
mm.
seeing the silks, right? They took us everywhere. We went to ceramic shops, silk shops, different places,
What an
and
amazing
seeing that.
experience.
Yeah, for a 16-year-old
Wow.
teenager, we went everywhere. We went every possible place that they could take us. And when I was in Gaza, I remember we were walking and an Israeli soldier had come up upon us and I was taking photographs and he's like, put away your camera. No, we were being kind of 16-year-old smartasses. I don't know if I
Yeah,
could say that here, but I'm gonna say it.
you can.
And he turns around to me, goes, "I will kill you, rape you, kill you, and throw you in a ditch, and no one
Whoa.
will ever know, my friend." And I'm thinking to myself, wow. And he had a great American accent. We were joking. A piece of my memory tells me he was like from Brooklyn. Like
Yeah.
something keeps popping up, like he was a Brooklyn, New Yorker. I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember if that's actually, but I remember that story because, here I am walking around with my camera, just photographing things. And this person told me he can take my life just like that and dump
Mm-hmm.
my passport. And I meant nothing. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that was a point where when I came back to New York, um, I became very active in politics in Palestine. I was going to protest. I joined a youth group. I did a lot more art with my Tatreez. I was photographing. I started to photograph and then add Tatreez to my photographs, right? So I photograph on produce my own black and white, and then do my Tatreez right on the photograph, right? And here I was doing all of these things because I needed that outlet. And it brought
Mm-hmm.
me peace to do that. And it brought me closer to being the experience I had in Palestine. And then I continued to that. I went off to college. Um, and I continued to do Tatreez. And I was doing at this time, I think I posted a couple of weeks ago, pillow I found, and I'm going to date myself here, from 1994 that I did when I was college. And I did this motif of oranges and blues, and I at that time I was dating my stuff, and I never thought to do that again, but I was putting dates on it, and I'm so glad I did because I would
Yeah.
have never, like 1994, this is the work I was doing. And so my art took off very differently after that trip. um I was photographing more, I was putting more content on um my travels in New York as I saw Palestinians, as I went to protests, photographing protests. When we would go to weddings, the Tatreez that I would see at the weddings, and trying to document the motifs because I would then come home and look for them in my books that I bought when I was there, right? So I bought a couple of Tatreez books, all in Arabic. I know that nothing was in English. And I would try to find the villages, and I would ask my dad, what village is this from? What village is this from? And I would try to piece together my own story um, with my photographs and my Tatreez, like whatever was inspiring me at the time. Um, and then as time went on, I just continued to do very different things with my Tatreez. I didn't do it till only because I felt overwhelmed by that type of project.
Hmm.
Um, Pillows were my things, photographing on silk, printing on silk, and then trying to do my embroidery on silk, trying to learn from my aunt the couching.
stitch. And then right, as you grow older, children come into play, you put down, you pick it up. And then about I think around COVID, um, I had this, I don't know, epiphany, awakening of like, I really haven't um done my Tatreez in a long time. And I picked it up. Picked it up and I started doing it and I started making little things again. Um, I took a class with Watfa on the history of the different motifs to better understand it.
Hmm.
And then I came across Lena's class, the thobe class, and I was like, I'm gonna try to make a thobe, but I'm not gonna harp on that one because still I think with her class, well, because her class brought me to a new level of
Mm.
my fiber arts that I didn't know I was missing. So I didn't know how to sew before Lena's class. I was like, oh, I'm going to hand sew a thobe. Yes. And then I'm like, well, what if I took a sewing class? And what if
Mm.
I made the thobe with the machine? I know some people in her class were like, I'm going to hand sew it. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I don't have, if I can get the tatreez in the material, I'm going to learn to sew. Um, and I think that was another big escape for me was learning how to. I did my practice though, my mock up, um, and really then began to understand right how a story is told. Right, what did I want on there? I wasn't making it for myself because I have several thobes. Wanted to make it for my daughter, and I said it was going to be her graduation thobe from college. So I got 2 years, Lena. I got 2 years to finish it.
You're
She's
right
still in
on
school.
time. You're right on time. You got
Um,
this.
and so those were that was when I started to really think about her story and my story, and what I wanted to put on there and thinking about the motifs that meant something to me and what they look like in different colors. And I think I then just started to um, do small projects. I was and finishing projects because I had a ton of projects from when my kids were little that were still kind of laying around. Um, and I just started to finish up projects and think about the motifs that meant something to me. And I know Lena had spoken about her thobe and the the orchids. I think it was orchids, right, Lena, that you put
Yeah.
on your thobe
Yeah, yeah,
from
yeah.
to represent Panama.
Hmm.
Um, uh, and then I thought, well, why can't I put butterflies? And I started to look for butterflies,
Yes.
but I wanted butterflies. I did not like the butterflies that I was finding. And I
Hmm.
remember seeing a thobe in one of my photographs of my aunt who had butterflies. So here I went digging in through all my pictures to find this picture of this thobe with the butterflies. And I found it. And so
Oh,
that has
I
become
love this.
my thing, right? So I
I
go through the
love.
story of trying to find those pieces from my aunt's thobes and from the thobes that my sisters and my mom and people I know still have to pull out those pieces that I think mean something to me, that I can place on my daughter's thobe. So I have the roses from one of my aunt's thobe. I found this very old picture of my aunt's stove with butterflies on it, in orange, all in orange, which I thought was amazing that, black and orange. I was like, oh, wow,
Yeah.
she did a black and orange stove. And then just really looking for those motifs that mean something to me. So, and
I, I love this. I think that I'm gonna push you on this. Everyone needs to see these pictures. I feel like we need to it just sounds so amazing. It sounds like I feel like right now, because the threes historically has not necessarily been documented, so many of us, we just kind of stitch like what we find in the books, like
mhm.
or what people see in dresses or old dresses. But really people are limited to what they have in front of them. So I need to see those pictures.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the things that I'm so thankful that I did Lena's
Yeah.
class was because I did not understand the whole storyboarding of it. I knew there
Hmm.
was a story behind it, and I think um I'm thankful because she pushed that, like, hey, you had I'm gonna go free artist. That's how I do. I'm a free artist. I'm gonna stitch whatever I want. And then I started thinking about some of the words that resonated with me from that time, and seeing some of the thoughts and thinking to myself, no, if I'm going to tell a story and I'm going to put my love into this thobe for my daughter, I want to tell my story and her story in this thobe. um and finding those pictures, so I do have them. I've been pulling them out, and finding them and finding past things that I did when I was 16, 17. I sound like a hoarder. I'm not a hoarder. It's all very well documented, on slides and on negatives, and in picture boxes, all on a nice, good thumb drive. But like really finding this stuff and trying to piece together and document it, because I'm so thankful for Instagram also. As I open it, when I open my Instagram, there's always a piece about the Tatreez on it, right? There's always a story. Someone's documenting it. Someone is putting something on there they made. And while I've been finding these pieces, I've been putting them on clothing. So I made a jean jacket with one of the motifs. I did a sweatshirt. I do a lot of sweatshirts for my daughter so she can wear them at school. So I've done a lot of my motifs on sweatshirts for her. I've done jeans. I do bags. I do project bags, makeup bags. Like I try all of my motifs because I want to wear my Tatreez every day. I want people to see um, the Tatreez. I want people to ask me, "Oh my God, where did you buy that? Where'd you get that from?"
Hmm.
And be able to say, "This is Palestinian Tatreez." And this past year, I went to a sewing camp. I know it sounds crazy. I went to a sewing camp, like a sleepaway camp to sew, and I
Love.
did a workshop. It was so much fun. I have to say, I have not had that much fun in such a long time. But I did this sewing workshop up in the Catskills with a great group of women. Um, and I did a workshop on Tatreez, and I spoke about the dresses, and I wore my thobe, and we did a lesson on how to embroider and waist canvas, and all the different things. And people are like, "Oh my God, I had no idea." And reclaiming the Bethlehem star, right, and saying like, "This is our star. This whole thing is not someone else. This is ours. This is our Bethlehem star." Right. And they were like, wow. And people walked away understanding more about the Tatreez and the Thob, and the the identity, our identity, right? And making
Hmm.
us real. I feel like that is so important, is for people to understand, like, we're human, we have culture, we have heritage. Like, you can't
Hmm.
just wipe us away, right? This is this is who we are, and this is not just now. This is my dress that I am wearing, and I had a dress on from 1986. That was, and I still fit into it. So I want to put that out there for everyone. I had to let out the sides. I showed them, like, how they put in the pieces where you can let the dress
Hmm.
out a little bit. So I was like, listen, guys, listen, this is how we make our dresses. You can let it out if you get heavier, and if you get shorter, you can take it up. And it was interesting because they did not realize that. And they're like, that dress is over 40 years old. I'm like, yes, it's over 40 years old. And this is 40 years of my heritage that I
Hmm.
got when I was 16. I got this dress. So let's just talk about this. Let's just talk. And it was important for me, for people to understand, right, that this is not just the now. It is embedded in our history. It is embedded in our culture. Women have been wearing these dresses for years, right? Hundreds of years, and it's not going to be taken away from us. So it's really important for me in all the projects that I'm currently sewing, that I add a piece of Tatreez to it. So
Hmm.
that has been my big thing, is adding it to clothing, adding it to bags, adding it to whatever I can to keep those motifs alive and that tradition alive.
This season's hottest look, genocide. From the brand that brought you fast fashion comes fast track complicity. Zara just opened its largest ever store in Israel, 45 square meters of settler chic, while Gaza buries its dead. Their Israeli franchisee hosted far-right minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, who calls for shooting civilians and expelling Palestinians. His review: beautiful clothes, beautiful Israelis. Our review: ugly politics. And yes, the jacket ad, mannequins shrouded like Palestinian bodies next to rubble. Zara called it a, quote, misunderstanding and kept cashing apartheid checks. Boycott Zara and all Indedex brands: Bershka, Massimo Dutti, Pull&Bear, Stradivarius, Oysho, Zara Home, because genocide is never in season. This anti-ad was produced by Tatreez Talk. We stitch, we talk, we boycott. Oh my goodness. I had no idea you didn't know how to sew. And this is so funny because you now teach fiber arts
Hmm.
classes to high school
Hmm.
students.
Hmm.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah, so I didn't know how to sew, and I was determined to do my thobe and learn how to sew that draft panel dress. And I was like, I'm going to do this. So I went out and bought a sewing machine, and I'm like, okay, this is a lot harder than I thought. Um, I found a private lesson, a woman who did private lessons not far from me, and I took a sewing class and I learned the basics, and then I started, I did the thobe and I was like, okay, the first one I scratched, it didn't work out. I did the second one and it worked. And my daughter tried it on. So I had her measurements and they worked out fine. Um, but it then became my passion, right? It became something I enjoyed doing. So I crochet, I knit, I sew, I embroider, I just learned how to do Japanese embroidery, the
Ooh.
shashiko.
Mm.
I did a class on the couching, and I got the Palestinian embroidery book from Sumbala.
Uh-huh.
So I think I'm saying that right. Um, and so I've learned all those stitches, and I've been incorporating them into different things. And I decided this year, this is my 18th year as a principal.
Wow.
And so I needed something with everything going on in the world. I needed to find joy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I need to bring joy to people. And Tatreez brings me joy. It brings me a sense of peace. It brings me closer to my identity. And I decided, against everybody's wishes at my job, all my assistant principals were like, "You can't do this." I'm like, "I have to." I started teaching a class. So I teach a class. We have done knitting, crocheting, embroidery, sewing. We have just started a unit on quilting. Um, they're quilting a piece. Uh, and so it is really important to me for them to understand um, how we carry on our traditions. I can't I right, I'm in New York City. I can't run around saying, "Oh, here's Palestinian embroidery," because it isn't that easy to do, right? I have to, especially in the past 3 years, there's this tension there that
Mm-hmm.
I think I walked very carefully along the line of it so that, right, um, I don't lose my job,
Yeah.
right? I don't get in trouble for being Palestinian, and it's sad that I have to say that. We kind of keep our heads down and try not to cause problems because, right, anything we say sometimes is taken out of context.
Mm-hmm.
But I had my thobe hanging in my office, and I talk about my thobe, and I brought it in for my students to see, and I said, we're going to learn how to do cross stitch, and this is what we're going to do. But I make it so that they understand that, right, this is my culture, this is my thobe,
Mm-hmm.
this is my heritage. But
Mm-hmm.
cross stitch is something that lots of different people do, but this is how we incorporate cross stitch into our culture. And I think it's been very good for me to kind of find ways to incorporate pieces of me into my class as a teacher, and build those relationships around fiber arts with my students. And then, right, bringing it to adults, right, doing these smaller workshops and talks in Westchester and at my, with my sewing group now, and right, spreading the word about what it is and how we do it, um, has been very. It helps me. I think the word I'm trying to find the way to say it, but I find peace in it. I
Mm,
find joy and peace in this work,
mhm,
that helps when I hear all the things that are happening now in Gaza and in Palestine. It helps heal my heart,
mhm,
knowing that we've resisted and we continue to resist, and that Tatreez is bringing us closer and closer, right,
mhm.
across the world in the diaspora.
Very, very beautifully said. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Like I feel that, and I think a lot of people who listen to this will definitely connect with that as well. I was gonna ask you how you balance incorporating Tatreez into your classes at school while, being in a public school and what that means and all of that. But you answered a little bit of that, and I'm just curious, like, since you've been teaching workshops, both, in high school with your high school students as well as these adult students, has that changed or evolved the way you personally engage with Tatreez?
Um, I think I don't think it's changed it. I think it's made it more of my everyday. Um,
Mm.
in the past, it's been whenever, I had time, I would do it if I wasn't running around. Now it's not that. I'm on the train, the Metro North into work. I'm embroidering. I don't care who's watching. I'm doing my embroidery. If I have to finish a project to show students, I'm knitting. I'm figuring out stuff. So I'm adding it into my daily commute, right?
Yeah.
It's part of my day. I'm making sure that it's it's something I do every day to find like people do yoga, people do meditation. That's my time for myself. So I think it has changed my relationship in terms of it's my happy place where I find time for myself, right? It's not like, oh, whenever I get a chance. It's like, this is what I do. This is my 20 minutes of day that I am working on this piece.
Mm.
So I think it has changed.
I love that. I love that so much. And I've been meaning to ask, how about your daughter? Have you taught her? Does she practice?
Yeah, no, I think at one point she may try to. She likes to do jewelry and beading and
Ah, okay.
Cool.
yeah, so I think at some point I'm gonna be like, hey, let's add some beads to this dress.
Ooh,
Yeah,
yes.
that's
Yeah, yeah.
cool.
So she does that. So, right, but she's 19 in college, focused
Yeah.
on school,
Yeah.
which is where I need her to be. Um, so I think she does very much look for things. She'll see things and she's like, oh my God, look at this, mom. Put this on my dress. I saw this on Instagram. Or, hey, mom, can you find something that represents this to put
Mhm.
on my dress? And I think at some point she'll turn to it. I think my thing was I should have done it when she was 5 or 6 or 7, younger, right? Because that's when I was taught.
Mhm.
Um, but if she chooses to, she chooses to. I think her beading is very much her thing.
It's
So
beautiful.
hopefully she'll incorporate it if into my embroidery at some point as she gets older and finishes up her coursework.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I love that. Okay, so speaking of your daughter's thobe as well, I
Hmm.
that is still a work in progress. We're going to be keeping
This
tabs on
is
it.
yes, yes.
But what is next for your Tatreez journey? Is it her thobe, or do you have other projects that you're working on as well?
So I have a couple of projects I'm working on. I've been doing these project bags with repurpose pieces of like I find that if I find a piece of my Tatreez from 20 years ago, and some of it has not fared well as some of the other pieces, so repurposing it into a project bag, or a purse, or uh, I don't know. I don't like doing pillows anymore because I want people to see it.
Mhm.
I want it out in the world. So I'm trying to find ways of putting it out in the world. So those are the things I'm working on. I have 4 or 5 pieces, chest panels that I'm working on that I started working on, maybe 10 years ago, that
Mhm.
I'm determined to finish. But the problem is they're on 18 count canvas.
Oh, I love
Uh,
that.
Oh my
yes,
God.
but my
Oh my,
yes,
your
I know,
eyes.
I know, I
these
know.
are the yes. So
Oof.
I'm working on that slowly. And then my daughter's piece, I pick it up when I find a new motif. I'm almost done with my chest panel, which I will be posting shortly. I have figured out what I'm putting on her sleeves. So that is going to be the easiest. The chest panel for me was the hardest because it's the first thing people see. And I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that it told her story as well as my story to her, as the first piece. So I have one more motif that's going up, and then I'll be posting that. And I think once the arms are done, um, this the oh my god, the side panel should be relatively easy. I would like to. I've been working on a pattern for a dress, but a very modern dress. I'm trying to put the tris on like my dresses. So I did a, like, I don't want to call it a caftan,
Hmm.
but it was my summer dress, a white linen dress that I made.
Love.
And I put the tris on the sleeves, on the neck, and on the bottom of the skirt. So it is adding. My next one is doing a sort of a sleeveless dress for the summer out of linen, but very simple, right?
Hmm.
I'm one person who likes one color, one or two
Hmm.
colors on a dress, keeping it very simple, keeping my reds. I tend to go to the reds, the pinks, and the purples, keeping those colors straight through.
Hmm.
On a linen dress is my hope, because I feel like I can stitch one color faster and um, get that done. But let's see. Those are my projects. I have lots of little projects everywhere. I got a knitted hat. I had crocheting, granny squares with the Palestinian colors. Doing a watermelon crochet thing for my daughter. Um,
You're
Sewing
keeping
up a
yourself very
storm.
busy.
I am. I am. I find my train time is very precious to me.
I hear that. When I lived in New York and took the subway, I got so much reading done. It was actually
Hmm.
really great for my reading.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so, we could probably talk to you for hours and hours, but we can't. So before we kind of wrap up, we always like to ask, what is a major life lesson that you have gained from Tatreez?
Telling my story, sharing my identity,
Mm,
not being shy about who I am, and not being shy even if a piece doesn't work out well. It was how I was feeling.
mm,
If it's crooked, it's fine. It's my story, it's my piece, and it's what I'm sharing with people, and it's my outlet of sharing myself with others and my story. So that's what I would like people like to, like my storyline is, it brings me joy, and it's part of me.
The best lesson ever. I love it. That is so beautiful, Watfa. I love it so much. It's such a joy to hear more of your story, even though I knew you a little bit before this. But these conversations are always incredible. I learned so much about our guests, and it was so lovely to hear more of your story and your daughter's story. And your journey and all of the things. So thank you for taking the time and sending it with us. One last question before we kind of close out. I know that you're starting to post a little bit more. Where can people find you if they want to keep up, see more of your work, get inspired by all the projects that you're up to?
See
Where
those
can
pictures that you're eventually
Yeah,
going
yeah,
to develop.
those are going to go up now. Now I feel like I have to get them up.
they-
I will
It's
help
us.
you. You let me know. I got
Yeah.
you.
It's stitched by Foof. Um, so it's stitched with underscore by Foof, Foof. And it's from Watufa. That's what they used to call me
Hmm.
as a kid. So Foof is my nickname.
I love
So on
it.
Instagram and I think Threads is the new one, but yeah, Instagram it's stitched by Foof.
Cool.
Amazing. We'll make sure to link it so people can find you. I love it.
Amazing. This was so much fun. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
taking the
you.
time. That was such a great conversation. We could have definitely continued talking more and more and more, which sometimes is a problem for me. But yeah, it was so interesting to hear about her experience. And oh, one thing I need to correct. So she said that she had a dress from 1986 and it was over or yeah, 1986, and it was over 40 years old. I am from 1986 and I am not 40
I was just
yet.
doing the math.
So, yeah. Um that's just a personal thing I wanted
Feeling
to
a little bit
mention.
triggered.
Very triggered. I was like, "Yo, chill." But I'm a vintage soul. Uh
Yeah. You're something else. That's what you are. You are something. That's for sure.
You know what? They call me a lot of things.
Too funny, too funny. Oh my goodness. Yeah. No, but the stories are incredible. I mean, just everything she shared was so I just the one thing I couldn't stop couldn't get out of my head. I didn't say it in the moment, but I've been thinking about it. Is like she'd had photos from Gaza.
Yeah.
Like photos of Tatreez in Gaza.
And
And
she
I
just like
just
she went at a time where you could just mosey on in. Like it
yeah, I
was
mean,
wild. Like such a especially for us, like, obviously there is like a generational gap between us. And so to be anytime I hear about people's experiences in Philistine, I feel like we always hear about like 48 or before
hmm
48 or 67 and more, but hearing about like life in like the 80s and 90s and Palestine is also always interesting, and how quickly it's changed,
mm,
unfortunately.
I just know, but like those what she captured is no longer. Like
Yeah.
that's all I can think about. And I'm like, she literally captured something that we will never be able to witness. And
Hmm.
like it's so I don't know, it's just wild to me. I can't get it out of my head. And I'm just so grateful that she shared that experience with us so that we could have a little bit of kind of what's been taken from
Yeah.
Palestinians. And oh, yeah, I mean, like she said, it's so important that we like stand rooted in our identity, that we stay connected to Palestine, that we,
Hmm.
continue like this is how we like resist truly. Like it's when they say, I mean, like when we say that they are literally erasing a people, like this is it. This is the like the proof, the
Hmm.
evidence, whatever you want. Like, and not that you need it, but it just hits so much harder when like you can start to imagine someone that we're talking to over Zoom walking through Gaza at a time when she could. And ugh, I'm gonna
Yeah.
stop now.
And
I just, yeah.
no, I hear you, but and also like the fact that she was taking pictures of all these different motifs at all these different events without really like thinking about it. And now she can look at those
Mm,
pictures and reference them. Like
yeah.
the fact that she referenced a butterfly motif from one of her aunt's thobes for her daughters, like that's amazing, and that's exactly what Tatreez has always been.
Yeah.
And yeah, we got to push her to make sure she develops those pictures, and she needs to put them online on a website so everyone can see them.
And then you're gonna print them out and do some Tatreez on them.
Dead. Well, I'll leave that to her because she's also a photographer,
Yeah,
so
that's true. That's
she's,
true. I love
she
it.
could stitch her own pics, I'm sure.
Oh, so good. Oh my goodness. Okay, dear listeners, it's time to wrap up. So
Can I say you've
thank you.
been saying this recently, dear listeners, and it
Yeah.
always gives Bridgerton, and I kind of love it. Dear readers.
Dear Tatreezers, thank you for listening to another episode of Tatreez Talk. I wish I could do a voice.
Don't disrespect. Don't do that. That's
I'll do
rude.
that. I'll do that after the recording.
That's like a hate
I'll
crime.
just I'll, I'll harass you on WhatsApp.
Oh Lord.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we want to hear about your Tatreez journey. So please, please, please share your stories with us at tatreeztalk@gmail.com. And we just might have you on an upcoming episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite listening platform and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. You can follow me at Lina Stolb and Amani at Minamani, and of course the pod at Tatreez Talk. We will talk to you soon.